All right, if you're new here, I'm Jamie. I own probably the smallest audio store you've never heard of. If you have been around the channel for a while, you're probably thinking this looks like Groundhog's Day and we're doing the same truck again. But this is actually another Ford Raptor R. This one's a 2025. You probably just watched, if you just watched the last video, you're probably like, how in the world did you get another one? The crazy part is it is the same customer as the orange one we just did. Yes, he's got two R's. You know, a regular guy that likes his tunes and likes his cars. He's a local guy. And anyway, we've done a lot of projects for him. We're very, very fortunate that he chooses us every time. So we'll go through this one. This one's pretty much a lot like the one we just did for him, the orange one, the video before this. So I'll try and make it a little bit quicker. We did add on this one, this is his daily driver. So we did add the Radenso Ultimate 2.0 radar and laser defense kit on it. And then subwoofer wise, a little bit different back there. We didn't do as many subwoofers because he needs some storage in this one, but still wanted some good bass. So we'll, I guess, start in front and go to the back like we usually do. All right, so up front here in the grill, you're gonna see we have 4 laser jamming sensors. This is for the Radenso Ultimate 2.0 radar and laser defense system. So these here are gonna jam any laser gun. So if you get shot with any laser, by any police officer or whatever, it's going to jam the laser until he decides to either press a button to stop jamming, or you can also set the jammer up so it only jams for a certain amount of time. So you can set it for like 9 seconds. So you get shot, it's going to say laser, you have 9 seconds to slow down, and then it's going to stop jamming, and then they'll be able to get a reading. So they leave our place in unlimited mode. It's always jamming. So if you get shot, he does slow down. He can press one button on the controller, and then that would stop it from jamming for till it doesn't see a laser input for more than 30 seconds. Also in the front, right up in this area, is going to be the radar detector portion of it. It can see through plastic, so that's hidden back there. But you can see that these blend in pretty good to this black grill. One other thing we did for him is he brought these Baja lights. It's a kit that goes for these Raptors, so we swapped out his factory fog lights to these for him really quickly while it was in here. All right, in the dash up here, you can see we didn't change anything in the dash. We used the factory head units. We use a little adapter piece that goes, you take out the factory amplifier, and then this piece goes in line with it. It's a piece made by Pack. It's plug and play. You plug it in, gives you RCA outputs or fiber optic if you want to use that, and then that goes out to your aftermarket amplifiers. Everything still stays all the same in the dash. You will see down here in the console is where we put the bass knobs, a knob for an epicenter, which I'll cover here in a second, and then also the controller for the Radenso radar. So what we did is we took the USB port that was usually a little bit higher, kind of in the area where the display is now for the Radenso and the bass knobs. We moved it down lower. We did have to trim some stuff behind the console, some plastic that was back there to get the USB to fit down lower. And then we made a lasered piece that trimmed out over all of it and then flushed in the controller for the Radenso and then the 2 knobs here. So on the knobs, you have your epicenter knob on the right. That's the one that's not lit up. And then the one to the left, that one is a knob made by JL Audio. It's specific to their amplifiers, and it is a dual knob. So it's got a bigger knob on the backside and then a smaller one in the front. So you can do dual purpose for it. So what we set it up to do is we took the bigger one, and that actually turns up all his highs. So everything in the doors, front doors, rear doors, dash, tweeters, everything, it turns up and down the highs. And then the smaller knob that's in the middle, that one's a little bit easier to reach. That one is for his subwoofers. So he can adjust his bass up and down and the highs up and down quickly. So the reason he likes to do that in his trucks is sometimes he likes a little bit more bass and a little less highs. So, you know, he can turn the highs down a little bit and still leave the bass cranked all the way up. So quite a bit of adjustability. The epicenter, that knob, what that's for, an epicenter is made to kind of restore bass. So if you have some older recordings that don't have very good bass in them, it'll take and it kind of analyzes the sound going in and then kind of takes what bass it does kind of see and turns it into a lower frequency. So it's not great for newer type music that's recorded really well, but kind of some of your older stuff that might be missing a little bass, it's nice to have one of those. So if you listen to a lot of older stuff, newer stuff, it kind of gives you a little bit of adjustability. I will say you do have to be very cautious using epicenter because you can blow things up really fast. You know, one thing is you want to make sure you don't have it turned up and then switch from some old classic song to something with a lot of new bass. It can add a lot of distortion really quickly. You can also see all this stuff is right under this little door here. So if you want to shut the door, if you look at the front of the vehicle, everything is 100% completely stock there. You can't see anything that was altered in any way. For the door speakers in the front, we use the Focal Utopia 8-inch speakers, same as we did in this other orange one. They're an awesome mid-bass speaker. We build a plate to mount it into the factory location out of composite materials. Bolts right to the factory spots, no cutting. We also take and we make a foam ring that goes around the speaker before we put the door panel on. That way it isolates the speaker from kind of the back side of the door or in the door panel and gets everything coming right out of that grill. A couple other things we did inside the door here is we did sound deadening on the outer skin and the inner skin of the door. That helps with road noise in the vehicle. It also helps the mid-bass perform a little bit better. And then we also take in the window opening that's used for access for taking the window in and out or servicing a door handle that comes from the factory. There's usually a big hole in this inner skin of metal. We make a piece out of 1/8-inch ABS, and then we use machine screws, stainless, and then we screw that in. So that helps seal off that door to help produce a little bit more mid-bass. And then it also leaves it so a service technician could take that panel off and still be able to service the window without having to remove a bunch of sound deadening. Up in the dash here, from the factory, there is some probably like 2.5-inch speakers, maybe 2-inch speakers that fire up towards the windshield. We're able to modify that. We do have to cut out some of the factory plastic, and then we make a little plate, and we're able to get the 3.5-inch mid-range made by Focal, their Utopia series, up in there. It still fits behind the factory grille, so when you put the factory dash panel back on here, it all looks stock and nothing looks out of place. We also take the factory tweeter location here in the A-pillar, and we're able to make a bracket. We usually make it out of like an 1/8-inch ABS also, so it'll bolt to the factory bolt locations. You can get that Focal Utopia tweeter back in behind the factory panel. We do have to heat up the mount that we make to kind of bend the tab so it kind of forms to the back of this. But again, it makes it so you have nothing looking out of place. Everything looks factory. So if anybody looks in, they don't know the difference. I've mentioned in some other videos that usually when we do a system, if it has the B&O system from the factory, it has a center channel in it, and we usually just abandon that. We'll just disconnect it or whatever. We don't replace it with another speaker. And then we're able to tune all these other speakers so it gives it kind of a good imaging up here without the center channel. So when we do a vehicle like this where we abandon the center channel and we also do a radar system, we take out the factory center channel and then we install the speaker for the radar up in this area so it's nice and loud. We make a little adapter for that on our laser, and then it bolts right to the factory spot there where the center channel will go. All right, I think that's everything in the front, so let's head to the back seat here. Back doors, we use the Focal K2 speakers. We use a coaxial speaker. We do their 6.5-inch coax. It has a 6-inch mid-bass, and then it has a tweeter in the center of it. Again, fits behind the factory door panel. We make a composite speaker adapter again, so it mounts right to the factory bolts. Same thing on the door on the inside. We sound deaden the outer skin and the inner skin, and then we also make one of those plates to go over the opening for the access for the window servicing. So that way, if it goes to a shop, they can unscrew that, do what they need to do, screw it right back on. All right, for all the gear, we put all that behind the rear seats here. You can see this passenger side folds down really easy. There's a little tab you can pull and flip down the seat to get to access, because that's where the jack and stuff used to be for the car. Unfortunately, we do have to move that stuff around when we build something of this size, but I'll show you there's some storage in the subwoofer enclosure. So we didn't lose his jack or anything like that. So we'll go over that in a second. But back here, I just wanted to go over everything we have. Over here in the corner, we have the piece that I was talking about. That's the handshake piece. That's the piece that goes between the factory head unit and the aftermarket amplifiers. So what it does is it reads the signal that the factory head unit used to send to the factory amp, turns it into RCA full range outputs, and then that sends it to the amplifiers. You can see below that we have the power and ground distribution. we run a 0 gauge power and a 0 gauge ground up to the front of the vehicle. Out of that, we run 4 gauge power wires. They go to each amplifier. Next to this subwoofer amplifier, you'll also see a relay. We take the output that turns on the amplifiers and we put a relay in that. What that does is sometimes if you add too many amplifiers and you try and turn them on with one wire to turn them on and off, if you have too many amplifiers, it could blow that circuit. So by putting a relay in there, it gives more amperage basically. So the turn-ons, it's not going to blow out that portion of the handshake module. So one thing I did want to mention, in these videos, I kind of want to help out other installers, also customers, just so everybody understands what we do, why it takes so long, why things cost what they do. And then also, if we find any things that are troublesome to us, we can pass along the information to other installers out there or other shops, because it sure does suck when you're trying to do a project and you run into something and you have to get online and research and call tech support. So hopefully this, maybe these little things will help out. I'm going to try and do at least one thing in every video or more if we run into more things. But for instance, this is a brand new platform. This is a 2025 Raptor R. The handshake module that we use for it is different from previous Fords, like the 2024s. The main thing is the plug is different for the fiber optic. So if you do have a 2025 coming in, it's probably going to be a different module. This module on this new 2025 is a PAC AP4 FD32. So this is one of the first ones we've installed. Well, first one we've installed. It might have been the first batch out. So we've had a couple of things that we've found. One is we found that we're only getting Bluetooth phone calls through the front left speakers. It's not through the both front, left, and right like it should be. We've went into all the settings on the vehicle. It doesn't seem like there's any settings in the vehicle that make it just left or right. We also plugged in the PAC piece to their firmware update, has the latest firmware. Just for reference, this is September 1st, 2025 that I'm recording this, and there's no adjustments to make it just left or left and right that we could find. So we're going to get a hold of PAC, kind of pass that information on. Hopefully there's a firmware update for it. If you know more than us, please drop it in the comments because we would love to also know. Okay, so amplifiers. The silver amplifier here, this one runs the bass. This is a JL Audio HD 1201. So we have 1200 watts. We have 2 subwoofers under the seats, which I'll show you here in a little bit. We have 2 10-inch Trulli slimline woofers and a sealed enclosure. So each woofer is getting 600 watts. Subwoofers, they're wired in series. So the amp is seeing a 4 ohm load. That amp does 1200 watts at 4 ohms or 1200 watts at 2 ohms. So that's why we chose that amplifier. Behind me are the 2 other amps that run the door speakers, dash speakers, A-pillars. So the smaller one of the white ones, that's going to run these rear 2 doors. That is a MV602i. It does have a built-in DSP in it. The other amplifier that we're using is an JL Audio MV808i. It's an 8-channel amp. You've probably seen this in other videos. We take the 8-channel amp, we make it into a 6-channel amp by bridging 4 of the channels down to 2. So those 4 channels that we bridge into 2 channels, we use for the mid-bass in the front doors to get more power to them. And then the other 4 channels, 2 of the channels run to the front 3-inch, 2 of the channels run to the tweeters. Also, if you didn't see the other video that we just did on one of these, the reason we use the marine grade amplifiers is because they have different inputs on them. They don't have like a cord coming out of them. So the cord management is a lot better on the marine version versus the car version. So if we have room in certain cars, we will use the car version, but in these trucks we found it's just a little bit of a cleaner look if we're able to use the marine one. So that's why we go that route. One thing I might mention is if you do choose to use the marine amplifiers and you want to add a front remote control with the knobs, you do have to get an adapter piece. That's like I think it's like a DCI, like it's a MVI adapter. It's about $100 part, which that's the only drawback that I really see to these marine ones is by the time you buy a bass knob and then you buy the adapter, I mean, you're into it a few $100. So I remember back in the day when a bass knob was $30, but anyway, that pretty much covers the amplifiers back here. And then you also see that we have this thing called an epicenter here in the center. I kind of talked about that earlier. It kind of restores bass if bass is not there. So that has, you dial that in a certain way with the little knobs on there. You got to tread lightly with an epicenter. So it's not for everybody. There's certain customers I would not put that in for just because I know that they would probably blow things up. So educate yourself before you just go out and buy one of those. All right, let's get to the good stuff, the bass. So under here, we were able to do 2 of the Trulli 10-inch subwoofers. This customer likes bass, you know, to a certain extent. I've found out in the comments that some people really like bass. But anyway, he likes as much bass as he can get without giving a lot up all the space. So this truck being his work truck and his daily driver, he does travel in it a lot. So he does carry some recovery type stuff. You know, he can't lose his jack. He also uses it to go dirt biking and stuff like that. He throws dirt bikes in the back. So he always has like all kinds of recovery gear, tie downs, you know, winch straps, things like that. He wanted to keep some of the storage under this rear seat. We use the Trulli woofers because they don't use a lot of airspace. We did a sealed enclosure. I believe the sealed enclosure is, I want to say it's like 1.3 to 1.5 total cubic feet. For both woofers, they're sharing the same airspace in there. There's no divider or anything. They downfire. We raise them off the floor a little bit so they don't hit the floor. And then we were able to build the box back under here too to gain a little bit of airspace. And then over on this side, you can see basically the subwoofer enclosure comes to about half or so, a little bit over half. This is all one piece. So you can see we, instead of having more woofers here, we did a tray that goes down in, and then it's able to give him quite a bit of storage to put hitches, his jack that we had to move from over there. He's got like a recovery toe strap, you know, a soft shackle, a bunch of gloves, things like that. We weren't able to get everything that he had in here before because the storage went all the way across. So he's probably gonna have to do a little bit consolidating, or maybe have something here on the front. But this box is all mounted in here. We mount it to these factory locations. You can see it comes back here. There's a little bit of airspace right here, and then the back comes up, so nothing's gonna fall back in there. But it's a good little box, good little solution. Gives them good bass. The Trullis they're a very musical woofer. They're not just a boom boom woofer. They sound really good. Is he going to be disappointed compared to the bass in his orange Raptor? I don't know. We'll see and hear about a couple hours when he picks it up. Anyway, it sounds really good. It's really musical. It's not a huge bass heavy type vehicle, but it sounds really full. Like I said, clean sounding woofers. Don't use a lot of airspace. Would I use them in every single install? Probably not. I think they're a great woofer for a certain person and a certain sound that you're looking for, like a JL woofer, like their TW3. I would say 75 to 85% of the people out there would probably be happy with that, and it's a lot less money. This is just me being honest. But he wanted to try these out. We've done a lot of projects for him. He likes trying different things. So we tried them out. They sound really good. Don't get me wrong. They're a great sounding speaker, but they're not cheap. Anyway, I think that's about it. I almost forgot to go over the back here. So this is the back side of the trucks that has the laser jammers built into it. We're able to router those into this rear bumper. Looks really nice here, fit almost perfect. So that was kind of fun. Made a little jig here, routed it right here on the truck. So that was kind of crazy. Anyway, they fit in here really nice and routed in, nice straight level and everything. And then we were able to put the radar sensor is back here behind the bumper here. There's no metal or anything back here. So we made a little mount there and fits right in. Well, that pretty much wraps this one up. I guess I should have went over a little bit on that subwoofer enclosure. We did that inlay on the top with, you know, the little design. That's done with 1/4-inch acrylic. We do some things on the laser where we laser out the designs, pull the paper off the acrylic, and then use some flat black paint to kind of give it that design. And then we cut out some of the spots for where you saw the Raptor logo, and then we insert things into that, like different colors or whatever for the R. We did that also across the front of the box. I'll try and get some video of that. It's really hard to get that, but there's a pretty discreet little Raptor logo on the front. So it turned out really good, nice and clean, kind of matches the truck. Not too gaudy, no crazy lights or things like that, but I think it'll work good for him. So anyway, I guess that's all I got on this one. One thing I did want to say though is, you know, we're getting really close to getting to the subscriber count that we are really shooting for to get to. Doing these videos does take quite a bit of time, so we'd really like to keep doing them. But I mean, it's not just something that takes me 20 minutes. You know, try and present the car in a nice, clean manner, doing all the filming, doing the editing. I'm not that great at editing, but you know, I've definitely got hours and hours into making every single one of these videos. So anyway, it's free to hit that like button. It's free to hit the subscribe button. So either one of those would really help us out. Hope to see you on the next one. Thanks.